I was watching TV with my fiancée when her phone suddenly connected to Bluetooth. A message played out loud. Last night was a mistake. Or was it? She lunged for the remote. Then another message came through. I hope you've already found your fiancé's documents. Otherwise... The sound cut off as Hazel frantically jabbed at the remote, her face pale as winter morning. But it was too late. The damage was done, and we both knew it. Devin, I can explain. She started, but I held up my hand. Can you? I asked, my voice surprisingly calm. Inside, my mind was racing like a server farm during a DDoS attack. Because I've been wondering about those documents for 2 weeks now. Her green eyes widened. Those same eyes that had captivated me 3 years ago at that networking event downtown. Now they looked like broken glass. What documents? She whispered, but her voice cracked on the second word. I leaned back into our expensive leather couch, the one she'd insisted we buy with my bonus from the security consulting firm. The passport application I found in your desk drawer. The bank statements for an account I didn't know existed. The property deed with only your name on it. Hazel's breathing became shallow. She clutched the remote like it was a life preserver, but she was already drowning. You've been watching me, she said, and there was something almost like admiration in her voice. How? I couldn't help but smile. It wasn't a happy smile. You remember when you complained about your phone being slow last month? When I offered to optimize it for you? The color drained from her face completely now. I switched your emergency contacts to mirror my devices. Every text, every call, every email. I've been getting copies for 3 weeks. I stood up, walking to the window of our 20th floor apartment. The city sprawled below us, millions of lights twinkling like stars. I know about Brennan. She made a sound like a wounded animal. I know about the mortgage application using my income while planning to refinance under your name only after the wedding. I turned back to face her. I know about the power of attorney documents with my forged signature. I even know about the lawyer you've been consulting about asset protection. Hazel started crying then, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of someone whose carefully laid plans had just exploded in her face. The wedding is in 6 weeks, she sobbed. We sent out invitations. My family, your family. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Let me guess. Brennan is your cousin's college roommate? Or maybe he's your sister's ex-boyfriend. Some connection that made it feel less like betrayal? He's my colleague, she whispered. I know exactly who he is. Brennan Mitchell, senior mortgage specialist at Harbor Financial, drives a blue BMW, lives in that glass tower on Commonwealth Avenue, and apparently has a thing for engaged women. I walked to my home office, what Hazel always mockingly called my man cave, and returned with a thick folder. Her eyes followed it like a mouse watching a snake. Sit down, Hazel. We need to talk. She remained standing, defiant despite everything. You can't prove anything illegal. Can I? I opened the folder and pulled out the first document. This is your mortgage application, submitted last Tuesday. It lists my income, my credit score, and my employment history. But look here. I pointed to the signature line. This isn't my signature. Her mouth opened, then closed. This is a federal crime, Hazel. Mortgage fraud carries a penalty of up to 30 years in prison and $1 million fine. You wouldn't turn in my own fiancé? I pulled out my phone. I already did. I contacted the lender this morning. Your application has been flagged for investigation. The remote fell from her hands, clattering on our hardwood floor. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit is very interested in mortgage fraud these days, I continued conversationally, especially cases involving identity theft and forged documents. They should be contacting you within 48 hours. Hazel collapsed onto the couch like her strings had been cut. Why? I asked, and for the first time my voice betrayed the hurt I'd been hiding. 3 years together. We were planning a life. Was any of it real? She looked up at me with mascara running down her cheeks. It was real at first, but then Brennan and I started working together on that big commercial deal and you saw dollar signs. You don't understand the pressure I'm under, my student loans, my mother's medical bills, the competition at work. So you decided to steal from me. It wasn't stealing. We were getting married. What's yours would be mine anyway. Except you were planning to leave me right after the mortgage went through. She didn't deny it. I closed the folder and headed for the door. Where are you going? She called after me. To see Greg. I need a drink, and I need to figure out what to do with the rest of these documents. Devin, please. We can work this out. I'll call off the mortgage application. I'll transfer the money back. I paused at the door. You mean the down payment? The $40,000 from our joint savings account that you moved to your private account last week? Silence. It's too late, Hazel. The wheels are already in motion. I left her there, crying on our expensive couch in our expensive apartment that she'd never own. Murphy's pub sat wedged between a dry cleaner and a check-cashing place on a street that had seen better decades. The neon sign flickered intermittently, casting red shadows on the cracked sidewalk. It was exactly the kind of place where a man could disappear into his problems. Greg O'Malley stood behind the bar like a mountain in an apron, polishing glasses with the methodical precision of someone who'd done this 10,000 times before. His ex-cop instincts kicked in the moment I walked through the door. "You look like hell," he said without preamble. "Feel worse." I slumped onto a bar stool and slid the folder across the scarred wooden surface. "Remember how you always said Hazel was too good to be true?" Greg set down his towel and opened the folder. His weathered face grew increasingly grim as he flipped through the pages. "Jesus, Devin, this is serious federal crime territory." "Tell me something I don't know." He poured 2 whiskeys without being asked. "How long have you suspected?" Honestly, part of me always knew something was off. She was too eager to handle all our finances, too insistent about keeping separate accounts for independence, but I ignored the red flags because she's beautiful and you're an idiot. Thanks for the pep talk. Greg's expression softened. "Sorry, but you know I'm right. What's your plan now?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the message logs I'd been collecting. "I've got 3 weeks of communications between her and Brennan. They've been planning this since before she accepted my proposal." "Planning what exactly?" "The perfect crime. Marry me, use my credit and income to secure a massive mortgage on a property worth twice what they're paying, then divorce me and keep the house. Brennan had it all worked out. Apparently he's done this before." Greg's knuckles whitened around his glass. "Done this before?" "His ex-wife. Similar pattern. Married her, convinced her to co-sign for investment properties, then cleaned her out in the divorce. She's working 2 jobs now just to pay the debts he left her with." "And Hazel knew this?" I scrolled through the messages on my phone. "Listen to this. From Hazel to Brennan, dated 2 months ago. I don't care what you did to Rebecca. She was stupid enough to trust you. I'm smarter. We do this my way, and we both win." Greg drained his whiskey. Cold-blooded. "It gets better. They were planning to frame me for domestic violence if I got suspicious. Brennan has a friend who's a photographer. They were going to stage fake bruises and get a restraining order. That's attempted destruction of my reputation, my business, and my freedom? Yeah." The pub's front door opened with a rusty squeal. A woman in designer clothes and too much perfume clip-clopped across the floor in heels that cost more than most people's rent. "Devin," Taylor Morrison's voice could cut glass, "I've been looking everywhere for you." I turned to face Hazel's best friend and chief enabler. Taylor was the kind of person who collected secrets like baseball cards and traded them for social currency. "Taylor, let me guess. Hazel sent you." "She's worried sick. She said you two had a fight and you stormed out with some folder full of documents." Greg and I exchanged glances. "Sit down, Taylor. We need to talk." She perched on the edge of a bar stool like she might catch something from the upholstery. "This place is so authentic." "Cut the crap," I said. "How long have you known about Brennan?" Her perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the flush that crept up her neck. "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled up another message thread on my phone. "This is from your group chat with Hazel and 3 other women, from last weekend. Tell Devin you're having a girls' night while you're actually with Brennan. I'll post Instagram stories from the spa to give you an alibi." Taylor's mouth fell open. "Or this one, from 3 weeks ago. Brennan is so much hotter than Devin. Plus he actually has money. You're trading up, girl." "You hacked our group chat?" "I didn't have to hack anything. Hazel forwarded me screenshots when she was complaining about your other friends. She thought it was hilarious that you were all gossiping about her love life." The color drained from Taylor's face as she realized the implications. "She was playing all of you," Greg observed. "Classic manipulation tactic. Make each person think they're the only one who knows the secret." Taylor's voice became very small. "What screenshots?" I scrolled through my phone and found the folder labeled Taylor's Greatest Hits. "Let's see. Here's you talking about your friend Michelle's eating disorder. Here's you sharing photos from Jennifer's divorce proceedings that she sent you in confidence. And here's my personal favorite, you telling the group about your boss's gambling problem and how you're planning to use it to get his job. You can't. Those were private conversations." "Were they?" "Because according to this message from Hazel, she was forwarding the best ones to Brennan for entertainment." Taylor looked like she might vomit. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "You're going to go back to Hazel and tell her that I'm not angry. I'm impressed. Tell her she almost pulled off the perfect crime. That's it? That's it. Don't mention this conversation. Don't mention what you learned about the group chat. Just deliver the message." Taylor gathered her purse and stood on unsteady legs. "Devin, for what it's worth, I never thought she'd actually go through with it." "But you helped anyway." She had no answer for that. After she left, Greg refilled our glasses. "You're playing a dangerous game." "The game started without me. I'm just learning the rules." "What's the end game?" I stared at my reflection in the amber liquid. "Complete and total destruction. But first, I need to have a conversation with Brennan." Greg grinned for the first time all evening. "Now you're talking my language." Harbor Financial occupied 3 floors of a glass tower that screamed "new money" at anyone within a 5-mile radius. The lobby was all marble and chrome, designed to intimidate people into thinking the company was more successful than it actually was. I'd done my homework. Brennan Mitchell, 34, divorced, 2 years at Harbor Financial after being quietly asked to leave his previous firm for ethical concerns. He drove a leased BMW, lived in a rented condo, and had exactly $1,400 in his checking account. For someone planning to steal a house worth $800,000, he was living pretty close to the edge. The elevator dinged softly as I reached the 15th floor. Harbor Financial's reception area looked like a hotel lobby, complete with fresh flowers and classical music, playing at just the right volume to suggest sophistication without seeming pretentious. "I'm here to see Brennan Mitchell," I told the receptionist, a young woman with perfect teeth and dead eyes. "Do you have an appointment?" "Tell him it's about Hazel's mortgage application." Her fingers clicked across her keyboard. "Mr. Mitchell will see you now. Conference room B, down the hall on your left." The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. On a clear day, you could probably see all the way to the horizon. Today, gray clouds pressed against the glass like they were trying to get inside. Brennan was already waiting, and he looked exactly like his photos. Tall, lean, with the kind of artificially perfect smile that came from expensive dental work. He wore a suit that cost more than most people made in a week, but I could see the stress lines around his eyes. "You must be Devin," he said, extending his hand. "Hazel's told me so much about you." I ignored the handshake. "I bet she has." His smile faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly. "Please, have a seat. Can I get you coffee? Water?" "I'm fine." I sat across from him and placed my phone on the table. "Let's talk about your mortgage fraud scheme." The color drained from his face, but he kept smiling. "I'm sorry, what?" "The mortgage application using my forged signature. The plan to marry Hazel, steal my down payment, and leave me holding the bag when you disappear with the house." Brennan's hands were trembling slightly now. "I think there's been some misunderstanding." "Has there?" I pressed play on my phone. His own voice filled the room, crystal clear through the conference room speakers. "The beauty of this plan is that Devin will never see it coming. By the time he realizes what happened, we'll own the property outright, and he'll be stuck with the debt. Even if he tries to fight it in court, we'll have all the documentation showing he willingly signed everything." Brennan's face went gray. "Where did you get that?" "Your girlfriend has been forwarding me your conversations for weeks. She thought it was hilarious that you trusted her." "That's impossible. Hazel wouldn't—" I played another recording, this one of Hazel's voice. "Brennan is so pathetic. He actually thinks I'm going to split the money with him 50-50. Once we get the house, I'm going to have him arrested for mortgage fraud and keep everything for myself." Brennan looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. "She's been playing both of us," I continued conversationally. "The difference is, I figured it out before I lost everything." "You're lying." I slid a printed email across the table. "This is from Hazel to her lawyer, dated last week. She's asking about the legal procedures for turning in an accomplice in a federal crime in exchange for immunity." Brennan read the email twice, his face growing paler with each word. "She was going to throw you under the bus from day one," I said. You were never her partner. You were her fall guy." He slumped back in his chair like a deflated balloon. "Jesus Christ. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to call the mortgage company right now and withdraw the application. You're going to tell them it was submitted in error." "I can't do that. They'll ask questions." "They'll ask a lot more questions when the FBI shows up with fraud charges." Brennan stared out the window at the gray harbor. "What do you want?" "I want my $40,000 back. I want a signed confession detailing exactly how this scheme was supposed to work, and I want you to disappear from Hazel's life permanently." "And if I do all that?" "Then maybe I don't turn this evidence over to federal prosecutors." He was quiet for a long moment, weighing his options. Finally, he reached for his phone. "Harbor Financial, this is Brennan Mitchell. I need to speak to someone about withdrawing a mortgage application." While he made the call, I scrolled through more of the messages Hazel had unknowingly shared with me. The depth of their betrayal was breathtaking. They'd planned everything down to the fake domestic violence charges they'd file if I got suspicious. "It's done," Brennan said after hanging up. "The application is withdrawn." "Good. Now the confession." He pulled out a legal pad and started writing. His handwriting was shaky but legible. When he finished, I read it over carefully. "This is good, but you left out the part about your ex-wife." His head snapped up. "What about Rebecca?" "The same scam you pulled on her 2 years ago. The investment properties, the forged documents, the debt you left her with. How could you possibly know about that?" I showed him another message thread. Hazel did her research. She knew exactly what kind of person you were when she started this relationship. Brennan added a paragraph about his previous crimes, then signed and dated the confession. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you transfer my money back, pack your bags, and find somewhere else to practice your con games. I hear Florida is nice this time of year." "And Hazel?" I stood and pocketed the confession. "Hazel is my problem now." As I walked toward the elevator, Brennan called after me. "She'll destroy you. That's what she does." I turned back to face him. "She can try." The elevator doors closed on his stricken face. Through the glass walls, I could see him slumped over the conference table, staring at his hands like they belonged to someone else. My phone buzzed with a text from Hazel. "We need to talk. Come home." I smiled and typed back, "On my way." The apartment felt different when I walked in, smaller somehow, like the walls had moved closer together while I was gone. Hazel sat on our couch with her laptop open, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. She looked up when I entered, and I could see she'd been crying again. "Brennan called me," she said without preamble. "I figured he would. He said you threatened him." I hung my jacket on the door and walked to the kitchen. "Did he mention the part where he withdrew the fraudulent mortgage application?" "Devin, please, can we just talk about this like adults?" I poured myself a glass of water and leaned against the counter. "Sure, let's talk. Tell me about Rebecca." Hazel's face went white. "Who?" "Brennan's ex-wife, the one whose life he destroyed with the exact same scam he was planning to pull on me." "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone and read from her own messages. "I don't care what you did to Rebecca. She was stupid enough to trust you. I'm smarter." Hazel closed her laptop with shaking hands. "You've been spying on me." "I've been protecting myself. There's a difference." "This is illegal. You can't just hack someone's phone." "I didn't hack anything. You gave me your passwords, remember? When you asked me to fix your slow phone last month?" She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. "You've been planning this." "I've been reacting to your planning. Every move you made, I was 3 steps behind, trying to figure out what you were really up to. And now you know." "Now I know." I sat down across from her, the coffee table between us like a demilitarized zone. "The question is, what do we do about it?" Hazel's eyes narrowed. "What do you want?" "I want to know why. 3 years, Hazel, 3 years of my life. Was any of it real?" For a moment, her mask slipped, and I saw something that might have been genuine emotion. "At first, yes. When we met at that networking event, when you asked me out, that was real. You were sweet and funny and different from the other guys I'd dated. But sweet and funny doesn't pay for my mother's cancer treatments. It doesn't eliminate my student loans or get me out of the financial hole I've been in since college. So you decided to rob me." "I decided to solve both our problems. The house would have been a good investment for both of us. Except I would never have seen a penny of it." She had no answer for that. "What about the domestic violence charges? Was that part of solving our problems too?" Hazel looked genuinely surprised. "What domestic violence charges?" I showed her the message thread where she and Brennan discussed staging fake bruises and getting a restraining order. Her face crumpled as she read. "I never agreed to that," she whispered. "That was all Brennan's idea. I told him it was too risky." "But you didn't say no." I was scared. The plan was getting so complicated, and Brennan kept pushing for more extreme measures. I just wanted to get the house and disappear. Disappear where? Somewhere warm, maybe California or Arizona, somewhere I could start over. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. With my money. With our money, we were going to be married. "Stop," I held up my hand. "Just stop. We both know the marriage was part of the con. You were never planning to actually be my wife." Hazel started crying again, but these tears looked different. Less manipulative, more genuine. "I'm sorry, Devin. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I am sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." "But you were willing to destroy my life to save yours." "Yes." At least she was being honest now. My phone rang. The caller ID showed Greg's number. "I need to take this," I told Hazel, then answered. "What's up?" "Turn on Channel 7 News. Now." I grabbed the remote and switched to the local news station. A perfectly coiffed reporter stood in front of Harbor Financial's building. Federal agents raided the offices of Harbor Financial this afternoon, arresting several employees in connection with an ongoing mortgage fraud investigation. The FBI says the scheme involved forged documents and identity theft, with losses estimated in the millions of dollars. Hazel gasped as Brennan's photo appeared on screen, labeled as Person of Interest. Brennan Mitchell, a senior mortgage specialist at the firm, is wanted for questioning in connection with similar fraud cases dating back 3 years. Anyone with information about his whereabouts is asked to contact federal authorities. I muted the TV and looked at Hazel. Her face was the color of old newspaper. "They're going to come for me next," she whispered. "Probably." What am I going to do? I stood up and walked to the window. The city spread out below us, millions of people living their lives, making their choices, dealing with the consequences. "You're going to get a lawyer," I said without turning around. "A good one. And you're going to tell them everything." Will you testify against me?" I turned to face her. "If they ask me to, yes." She nodded like she'd expected that answer. "I deserve it." "Yes, you do." We sat in silence for a while, watching the news coverage. More details emerged. Harbor Financial had been under investigation for months, and Brennan's arrest had apparently been the break federal agents needed to unravel a much larger conspiracy. "Devin?" Hazel's voice was very small. "Yeah?" "For what it's worth, I did love you. Maybe not enough, and maybe not the right way, but I did love you." I looked at her, really looked at her, for what I knew would be the last time. She was still beautiful, still the woman who'd captivated me 3 years ago. But now I could see the desperation underneath, the fear that had driven her to make increasingly destructive choices. "I know," I said, "and I loved you too. That's what makes this so hard." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Agent Sarah Chen with the FBI Financial Crimes Unit. We need to speak with you regarding Hazel Morrison and Brennan Mitchell. Please call me at your earliest convenience." I showed Hazel the message. She closed her eyes. "It's over, isn't it?" "Yeah, it's over." She packed 2 suitcases that night, taking only her clothes and personal items. Everything else, the furniture we'd bought together, the art we'd chosen, the life we'd built, stayed behind like artifacts from a civilization that had suddenly collapsed. "Where will you go?" I asked as she stood by the door with her bags. "My sister's place in Portland, at least until the lawyers figure out what's going to happen." "Hazel," she turned back to me, "I hope you get the help you need. I really do." She smiled sadly. "I hope you can forgive me someday." "I hope so too." The door closed behind her with a soft click, and I was alone in our apartment for the first time in 3 years. The silence was deafening. I called Agent Chen and arranged to meet her the next morning. Then I called Greg. "It's done," I told him. "How do you feel?" I thought about it for a moment. Empty, but also relieved. "That's normal. You want to come down to the pub? I'll keep it open late." "Thanks, but I think I need to be alone tonight." I hung up and walked to the window. The city lights twinkled below like stars, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. 6 months later, I sat in a federal courthouse watching Hazel accept a plea deal that would send her to minimum security prison for 18 months. She wore a simple blue dress and had cut her hair shorter. She looked younger somehow, less polished than the woman I'd fallen in love with. Brennan had been sentenced to 5 years after investigators discovered he'd defrauded 7 different women over the past decade. His ex-wife Rebecca had testified via video link from her home in Seattle, describing how his crimes had forced her into bankruptcy and destroyed her credit for years. "The defendant will surrender herself to federal authorities within 30 days, the judge announced. Court is adjourned. I watched as Hazel hugged her lawyer and whispered something to her sister. She didn't look in my direction, which was probably for the best. Outside the courthouse, Agent Chen approached me. "Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Devon. Your evidence was crucial to building these cases." "What happens now?" "Now they serve their time and hopefully learn from their mistakes. As for you," she handed me a check. "This is your $40,000, recovered from accounts Brennan had hidden in the Cayman Islands." I stared at the check. It represented 2 years of savings, money I'd planned to use for our honeymoon and the down payment on our dream house. "What will you do now?" Agent Chen asked. "I'm not sure. Maybe travel. Maybe start over somewhere new." "That sounds healthy." I folded the check and put it in my pocket. Agent Chen, can I ask you something? Sure. In your experience, do people like Hazel and Brennan ever really change? She considered the question carefully. Some do. Prison has a way of forcing people to confront the choices that brought them there, but change has to come from within. It can't be imposed from outside. I nodded and shook her hand. Thank you for everything. The courthouse steps were crowded with people coming and going. Lawyers, defendants, family members, reporters. I stood there for a moment, watching the flow of humanity, thinking about second chances and new beginnings. My phone buzzed with a text from Greg. How did it go? I typed back, It's finished. Good. Come to the pub tonight. There's someone I want you to meet. I smiled despite myself. Greg had been trying to set me up with various women for months, convinced that the best way to get over Hazel was to start dating again. I wasn't ready yet, but I appreciated his efforts. As I walked to my car, I passed a newsstand. The local paper's headline read, Mortgage Fraud Ring Sentenced. Below it was a photo of Brennan being led away in handcuffs, his expensive suit wrinkled and his perfect hair disheveled. I bought a copy of the paper, not because I wanted to relive the experience, but because I wanted to remember. Not the betrayal or the hurt, but the lesson. That people show you who they really are if you pay attention, and that sometimes the most important thing you can do is believe them the first time. The drive home took me past Harbor Financial's building. A for lease sign hung in the lobby window. The company had folded after the FBI investigation revealed widespread corruption throughout the organization. Dozens of employees had lost their jobs, and hundreds of clients had seen their mortgage applications delayed or canceled. I thought about all the collateral damage from Hazel and Brennan's scheme, the ripple effects that touched people who'd never even heard their names. It was a sobering reminder that our choices don't exist in a vacuum. Back at my apartment now, since Hazel had signed over her interest in the lease, I poured myself a whiskey and sat by the window. The city stretched out below me, full of possibilities and new beginnings. My phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. Hello? Devin? This is Rebecca Martinez, Brennan's ex-wife. I sat up straighter. Rebecca, I saw your testimony at the trial. I'm sorry about what he put you through. Thank you. That's actually why I'm calling. I wanted to thank you for bringing him to justice. If you hadn't uncovered his scheme with your fiancée, he would have kept destroying lives. I was just protecting myself? Maybe, but the result was the same. Because of your evidence, I was able to recover some of the money he stole from me. It's not everything, but it's enough to get back on my feet. We talked for a few more minutes about the investigation and the trials. Rebecca was a teacher in Seattle, working 2 jobs to pay off the debts Brennan had left her with. She sounded tired but resilient, like someone who'd been through hell and come out stronger on the other side. Can I ask you something? She said before hanging up. Of course. Do you hate her, your ex-fiancée? I thought about it. I did for a while, but hate is exhausting. Now I just feel empty where she used to be, like there's a space that needs to be filled with something better. That's very mature of you. I'm working on it. After we hung up, I sat in the gathering darkness, thinking about forgiveness and moving forward. Hazel had made her choices, and now she was facing the consequences. I couldn't control what happened to her, but I could control what happened to me. I opened my laptop and started researching travel destinations. Maybe it was time to see what else the world had to offer. 1 year later, I stood in the lobby of a small tech company in Austin, Texas, waiting to sign the papers that would make me a partner in their cybersecurity firm. The move from Boston had been exactly what I needed. New city, new job, new life. My phone buzzed with a text from Greg. Saw the news about your company's IPO announcement. Proud of you, buddy. I smiled and typed back, Thanks. Couldn't have done it without your support. It was true. After everything fell apart with Hazel, Greg had been the one constant in my life. The friend who'd helped me pick up the pieces and start over. He'd even helped me pack the moving truck when I decided to leave Boston behind. Mr. Devon? A young woman in a business suit approached. I'm Sarah Kim, the company's attorney, ready to make this official? More than ready. The signing took less than an hour, but it represented months of negotiation and due diligence. The company specialized in protecting small businesses from exactly the kind of fraud schemes that Hazel and Brennan had attempted. It felt like poetic justice. Afterward, I drove to my new apartment, a modest place with a view of the hill country, nothing like the expensive high-rise I'd shared with Hazel. This place felt like home in a way that apartment never had. I was unpacking the last of my boxes when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I hadn't seen in months. Agent Chen. Hello, Agent Chen. What can I do for you? I have some news about Hazel Morrison. She's being released early for good behavior. She'll be out next week. I sat down on my couch, processing this information. How early? She served 10 months of her 18-month sentence. The warden says she was a model prisoner, participated in educational programs, helped other inmates with their legal documents, stayed out of trouble. That's good, I guess. I hope she's learned something. She asked me to pass along a message if you were willing to hear it. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to hang up and pretend this conversation had never happened, but a larger part was curious. What's the message? She said to tell you that she understands now why you did what you did, and she's grateful. She said prison gave her time to think about the person she'd become, and she didn't like what she saw. Did she say anything else? She wanted you to know that she's not going to try to contact you. She understands that you've moved on, and she respects that. She just wanted you to know that she's sorry, and that she hopes you're happy. After we hung up, I sat in my living room, surrounded by moving boxes and the detritus of a life in transition. I thought about the woman I'd fallen in love with 3 years ago, and the woman who'd tried to destroy my life, and the woman who was now getting out of prison with a chance to start over. I hoped she would take that chance and do something better with it. My doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I opened it to find my new neighbor, a woman about my age with kind eyes and a warm smile. "Hi, I'm Jennifer," she said, holding a casserole dish. "I live next door. I thought you might be tired of unpacking and could use a home-cooked meal." "That's incredibly thoughtful. I'm Devin." "I know. The landlord mentioned you were moving in from Boston. Tech industry?" "Cybersecurity. How about you?" "I'm a teacher. Middle school math, which means I have the patience of a saint and the caffeine tolerance of a long-haul trucker." I laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd had in weeks. "Would you like to come in? I don't have much furniture yet, but I can offer you a drink. I'd like that." As we sat on my couch, eating her excellent chicken enchilada casserole and talking about everything and nothing, I realized that this was what I'd been missing with Hazel: genuine connection, easy conversation, the feeling that I was talking to someone who actually liked me for who I was. "Can I ask you something?" Jennifer said as the evening wound down. "Sure." "You seem like you're running from something. Not in a bad way, more like you're trying to outrun your past. I recognize the look because I've been there." I considered how much to tell her. I was engaged to someone who turned out to be not who I thought she was. It ended badly, and I decided I needed a fresh start. The classic "my ex was a sociopath" story. I know it well. My ex-husband was a compulsive liar who convinced me to invest our life savings in a business that existed only in his imagination. Ouch. How did you recover from that? Therapy, tequila, and a very patient sister who let me sleep on her couch for 6 months while I figured out my life. She smiled. The key was realizing that his betrayal said nothing about my worth as a person and everything about his character. That's a hard lesson to learn. The hardest, but also the most important. We exchanged numbers before she left, and I found myself looking forward to seeing her again. Not because I was ready for another relationship. I wasn't sure I'd ever be ready for that, but because she seemed like the kind of person who could become a real friend. That night, I dreamed about Hazel for the first time in months. In the dream, she was sitting in a prison cell, reading a book and looking peaceful in a way I'd never seen when we were together. When she looked up and saw me, she smiled sadly and mouthed the word "sorry." I woke up feeling lighter somehow, like a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying had been lifted from my shoulders. Epilogue. Full circle. 2 years after that night, I was back in Boston for a cybersecurity conference. The city looked the same, but felt different, smaller, less intimidating than I remembered. I had a few hours before my flight back to Austin, so I decided to walk through my old neighborhood. The apartment building where Hazel and I had lived together looked exactly the same. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, remembering the night when the Bluetooth message had changed everything. It felt like a lifetime ago. "Devin?" I turned around and saw her. Hazel looked different, thinner, with shorter hair and no makeup. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, and she looked nervous but determined. "Hi," she said. "I saw your name in the conference program online. I wasn't sure if you'd still be in the city." "Just leaving, actually. My flight's in a few hours." We stood there awkwardly for a moment. Two people who'd once planned to spend their lives together, now strangers. "You look good," she said finally. "Happy." "I am happy. How are you doing?" "Better. I'm working at a nonprofit now, helping people who've been victims of financial fraud. It doesn't pay much, but it feels like the right thing to do." "That sounds like meaningful work." "It is. Devin, She stopped and took a deep breath. I know I have no right to ask this, but could we talk, just for a few minutes? There are things I need to say. I looked at my watch. I had time, and part of me was curious about what she wanted to say. There's a coffee shop around the corner, I said. We walked in silence to the small cafe where we'd had our first date 3 years earlier. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. I've been in therapy, Hazel said after we'd ordered our drinks. Since I got out of prison, I'm trying to understand why I made the choices I made. Have you figured it out? Some of it. I was so scared of being poor, of ending up like my mother, working 3 jobs and still struggling to pay bills, that I convinced myself that taking from you was justified. I told myself you had more than you needed and that I deserved better than what I had. And now? Now I understand that I was a coward. Instead of working to improve my situation honestly, I tried to steal my way to a better life. And in the process, I hurt the one person who actually cared about me. I sipped my coffee and studied her face. She looked sincere, but I'd learned not to trust my ability to read her. I'm glad you're getting help, I said. But if you're looking for forgiveness, I'm not, she interrupted. I mean, I hope someday you can forgive me, but that's not why I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For stopping me. If you hadn't uncovered the scheme, I would have gone through with it. I would have destroyed your life and probably ruined my own even worse than I did. Prison was horrible, but it was also a wake-up call I desperately needed. We talked for another hour. She told me about her work at the nonprofit, about the women she counseled who'd been victims of romance scams and financial abuse. She'd found purpose in helping others avoid the mistakes she'd made. Are you seeing anyone? She asked as we prepared to leave. I am, actually. Her name is Jennifer. She's a teacher. Hazel smiled, and for the first time, it looked completely genuine. I'm happy for you. You deserve someone who appreciates what a good man you are. What about you? I'm focusing on myself right now, learning to be someone I can actually respect. Outside the cafe, we stood facing each other one last time. Goodbye, Devon, she said. I hope your life is everything you want it to be. Goodbye, Hazel. I hope you find what you're looking for. I watched her walk away, disappearing into the crowd of pedestrians. It was the closure I hadn't realized I needed. On the plane back to Austin, I texted Jennifer. Can't wait to see you. I have a story to tell you. She texted back. Good trip? The best kind, I replied. The kind that reminds you how far you've come. As the plane lifted off, I looked down at Boston, shrinking below me. Somewhere down there, Hazel was starting over, trying to build a life based on honesty instead of deception. Somewhere else, Brennan was still in prison, hopefully learning the same lessons. And here I was, flying home to a woman who loved me for who I really was, to a job that fulfilled me, to a life I'd built from the ashes of betrayal. The Bluetooth message that had destroyed my old life had also freed me to build a better one. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. I closed my eyes and smiled, finally at peace with the past and excited about the future.